It's Saturday. You know what that means. That's right, friends. It's time for the scholars to rise from the ashes to school the masses. Welcome to another edition of the Scholars of Wrestling Show, the annual Scholly's Awards, the year-end awards where we give our recommendations for the best of the year and the worst of the year. There's no other show quite like it, and thank you for joining us. I'm your man behind the microphone, Scholar Jeff. Joining us this week is the current reigning and defending Scholars of Wrestling heavyweight champion of the world, Mr. Scholar Charlie. Scholar Charlie, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Happy New Year, my fellow scholars. How are you guys feeling? Because I am feeling wicked awesome off of my Scholars of Wrestling McDonald's Cafe beverage.
Yes, indeed. Check these out on our new Teespring store if you're so inclined. I know I am. But elsewhere, I am doing well. And you all, who else is doing well? The current Scholars of Wrestling party champion with a brand new fancy microphone in tow, looking dapper as all hell. The one and only Mr. Scholar Tarek. Scholar Tarek, how are you doing this evening, sir?
I feel fine. Thank you for asking. I don't have my Scholars of Wrestling mug. It's upstairs in the kitchen, still not been used yet. I don't know because it's invisible right now. I don't have anything. Damn backgrounds.
Technology, gotta love it.
This metal mug that you can't see right now. All you see is the Scholly trophy behind me.
Absolutely. Hey, it fits because it's a special time of year. We're ringing in the new year by reflecting on the old. And let's face it would not be an episode of the Scholars of Wrestling Show without the other member of our crew, the one and only, the irreplaceable Scholar Brian. Scholar Brian, how are you doing tonight, sir?
Pretty good. Feeling pretty good about my year as a scholar in general. You know, doesn't matter that I'm not the champion now. There's no doubt that I was the best champion this year. So it's all gravy. Okay. I'm in the running for Scholar of the Year, which two of you are not. But you know what? It's all gravy because in the end, I know that without a shadow of a doubt, I was the best champion this year. And that's all that really matters in the end.
It's 2021 right now. There's only one champion of this year.
Yeah, but we're talking about last year, so that sucks for you.
Right. Trash talking aside.
It's the new year. We're still talking about last year. What the hell is wrong with us?
I don't know.
That's your fault. We could have done this last week.
Well, hey, let's put aside the trash talk for 1 second. Let's take a look back for one last time at 2020 and see where it all went wrong. This is the 2020 Scholarly Awards. So let's get right to it. Starting with the first category of the evening, Superstar of the Year. Whoever you thought was the Superstar of the Year, the Wrestler of the Year, whatever you want to call it. First, we're starting off with Champion's Advantage. Charlie, you're going first. Who is your Superstar / Wrestler of the Year?
Never in my bluest of blue hellish dreams would I think that I'm about to say what I'm about to say. But tenfold transition from face at Royal Rumble to ending the year off as the hottest heel going. I give you Roman Reigns.
And there it is. You just had to. Any other narrative behind that, or just Roman Reigns speaks for himself?
He's just he obviously speaks for himself, being the head of the table right now. But just the transition from finally being an accepted face to being the hottest heel you will ever see. Well, not you'll ever see, but the hottest heel version of himself, which we would never even fathom before 2020. I think he just was on fire.
Yes, certainly no argument for me. Scholar Tarek, you're up next. Who is your superstar of the year?
I'm not gonna lie. I actually have two categories, which I actually am cheating with this one because this is one of them, and the other one, it's I actually picked two superstars that were my superstars of the year. I honestly couldn't choose between the two. Uh, both of them has had very, very successful title reigns throughout this entire year. So when in certain aspects, when you look at them in their major companies, brands, their title reigns kind of mirrored each other in a way. So I'm going to go with Drew McIntyre and John Moxley as my superstar of the year.
Mm.
Like Moxley was already as was the more established guy going into AEW, but Drew McIntyre also basically built himself up to becoming a major player. One, winning the Royal Rumble, taking out Brock Lesnar and winning the Royal Rumble, main eventing two matches at WrestleMania, technically, with beating both Brock Lesnar and The Big Show, and having a pretty lengthy title reign with some feuds that really entertained me. Moxley is kind of a similar story, except, there was they don't have anything that's Royal Rumble equivalent yet in AEW. But when it comes to the title reign, their the feuds specifically in the title reign, they have been very entertaining feuds, and it helped build the championship for me, the AEW championship for me, as something of a brand new belt to where it is right now. So yeah, Drew McIntyre and John Moxley are tied at number one.
Two very good picks. Tough to call. Scholar Brian, it's your pick now. Who is your pick for superstar of the year?
This was tough for me. Okay, I respect Charlie's Roman Reigns pick just because of the complete 180 from the beginning of the year from a lukewarm face that was only as over as he was because of him coming back from his cancer diagnosis, to him leaving and coming back as the biggest heel you've ever seen. But here's the problem. Okay, I can't give him consideration for Wrestler of the Year because legit, he was here for 5 months. That's it. He was a part of wrestling in general for 5 months, legit, of a 12-month year. So it's like, if 2021, every chance in the world that Roman Reigns is going to be my pick, but I can't conceivably do it for this year. It does indeed come down to two, and I'm not going to take the easy way out and pick both of them. Here's the deal. Okay, I understand that one person was a new name who had been made in the Royal Rumble, which, hell, at this point, they haven't made a new star in the Royal Rumble for a few years now. So, like, that's big. And the fact that they actually let him run with it through the entire year, Drew McIntyre, that's huge. But it's also the fact for Drew McIntyre, he was holding the title in a company that was a made name. Okay, so for me, that's not as big of a deal as a guy who's holding the title, defending it against all comers. He only had multiple. What also does it for me is that the problem with Drew McIntyre's reign for me, instead of Jon Moxley, is that Drew McIntyre in his title reigns combined, okay, he's feuded with 4 guys. In an entire year-round calendar, he's feuded with 4 guys. Okay, and I'm going with Jon Moxley as my superstar of the year, basically because he was holding a title. He was the face of that company through the pandemic, a second tier company who is trying to make a name for themselves, trying to be on the come up. He is taking on all comers. Like I think he had 12 title defenses.
He had a good amount of them, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he had 12 title defenses, and the only time he faced off against the same guy twice was Eddie Kingston, and the only reason that happened was because Lance Archer came down with COVID, and he needed an opponent, and he handpicked Eddie Kingston the first time. So for me, it comes down to this. Yeah, you made a new star with Drew McIntyre, and he led the big name company through the pandemic. But the deal is that company was already known, and let's face it, okay, Drew McIntyre's name, okay, but Jon Moxley, the deal was the only match that I had a problem with was Hager. And that wasn't because it was a bad match. It was just that kind of match doesn't work without a crowd. So the deal with me is I'm giving it to Moxley because he held the title in a company that was making a name for itself, and he built that title to, like, it's a huge, it was a big deal with Jericho. It's a huge deal now because Jon Moxley made it so that the guy who finally beat him, Kenny Omega, for the title, that was a huge fucking deal. That was a huge deal. And the fact he got a whole bunch of people over in the process of him holding the title, and there were no bad matches in between. So with Drew McIntyre, for me, you can go either way here. Either way is a good pick. But for me, Jon Moxley was the bigger deal.
Yeah, I'm glad you put it that way because, yeah, real quick.
What cracked me up about this, about Brian's, because I do agree with him about how great Moxley is. It's just kind of funny that he also has to add the fact it's like, oh, I'm picking Jon Moxley because I'm also going to give reasons why your choices are wrong. Why Roman Reigns is a piece of shit.
Yeah,
Drew McIntyre is also a piece of shit, and Moxley's the man.
Well, hold on. What I was going to say
that anybody was a piece of shit.
Well,
it's like,
kids,
oh, here's my thing and why it's greater than yours. That's how I took it. It's just
pretty much.
All right.
Yeah, I took it that way too.
That is
all
just
right.
Like your guy beat cancer, but my guy defended the title 12 times.
Kids,
is just classic Brian, just throwing pulling the ultimate douche. It's like, here's mine and why my choices are better than your choices.
Order in the court. What I was going to say before I was so rudely interrupted was that I honestly considered both Drew McIntyre and John Moxley very strong contenders for Superstar of the Year, and there are very strong justifications for both guys. Drew McIntyre was launched into the main event at that time. He took to the role like a duck to water without seeming like an awkward douche. Like, as much as I love Seth Rollins, he just did not fare well in that position. It's very difficult to make that work, but I feel like Drew did. And you've got John Moxley, who was just like a very, very solid main event. He bled star for the vast majority of the year. And he was an excellent, excellent champion. However, I took a very different approach when I considered who my superstar of the year is, because where Drew and John Moxley were excellent professional wrestling champions, instead of that, I was drawn more to the person who made the most use of a COVID situation to just deliver time and time again. I looked at who made the most of the space and got the most creative, and you just took this ball in the COVID era and just ran with it like nobody else. And in my opinion, that person is my selection for the second year in a row, Bray Wyatt. Like, think back to this year. He may not have been the longest holding title holder, but he also did deliver, in my opinion, the widest array of matches, cinematic or not, moments in the ring, during TV shows, during pay-per-views. Of course, the Firefly Funhouse during WrestleMania. I think
They
that
lit his ass on fire, man.
I could say the
He's gotta
Firefly
be a douche
Funhouse at
again.
WrestleMania, and that would be enough. But yeah, he lit himself on fire. There was a first Inferno match in years on TV, and just the Wyatt Swamp match. This any number of ways to be creative on TV and recruiting Alexa Bliss. Maybe it's my bias here, but I personally am very drawn to that kind of stuff. And Bray has just made it work nigh consistently time and time again. So Bray is my pick for Superstar of the Year. That being said, let's switch the coin for a second. Let's go to underused Superstar of the Year. This one's always an interesting one. And Tarek, we're going to start off with you. Underused Superstar of the Year.
Is there really like thought
Come on now.
on my choice of underused superstar of the year?
Are you going to go to that well again, sir?
I'm gonna go to that well every time until he wins a world
Oh
championship.
boy.
I'm gonna go with the love of my life, Cesaro, as underused superstar of the year. Hopefully, this will be a year, since they're actually wanting to focus on pushing talent to actually get ratings. So, yeah, I hope with Cesaro, he seems to be starting in the right direction, because now he's the focal point of a tag team, where when he was with Sheamus, he was more the background guy. Now Cesaro is the main focal point, while Shinsuke is just the partner, unfortunately for Shinsuke, because he's just as amazing. But yeah, I'm gonna go until he gets that push he so rightfully deserves. I'm gonna go with Cesaro. He's my Lacey Evans for underused superstar of the year.
Oh, we'll get to her in just a second, but moving right along, Brian, it's your turn. Who do you have for underused superstar of the year?
I'm not gonna go the obvious route, because come on, the obvious answer for everybody, okay, is Cesaro. But I'm gonna go the same route I did last year. I'm gonna let Tarek have it, and I'm gonna go with the tag team partner. I'm gonna go with Shinsuke. They're in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, basically. Okay, it's they're two guys who should have been world champions by now. And what does Vince do? What he normally does with two guys who should have been world champions by now. He throws them in a tag team and sees what happens. And when they actually are allowed to go, okay, they show you how good they actually are. So Tarek gets Cesaro, as he does every year. I get Shinsuke, like I do every year. It's the same. It's every year like clockwork. We're always like, oh, we hope this person does well this year. And hey, guess what? They're in a tag team. All right, it's got to be one of those years.
All right. Well,
So-
that being said, I am going to be the first one to defy expectation in this category. I am not going to go with Lacey Evans this year. I honestly feel like she was doing some decent stuff this year. It's not like she wasn't used or she wasn't involved in anything. They made some decent use of her. But even if you don't believe that, even if you believe that Lacey was not used to her maximum capacity, like Cesaro, like Shinsuke, in my eyes, there's another person this year who was used far, far less than that. And I'm for my pick for underused superstar of the year, I'm going to go with Tucker Knight. Like when he was in NXT, whenever he came on and had a match, even before when he was a part of Heavy Machinery, I was like, I like this guy. I want to see more of him. I hope they turn him into something good. And I thought that when it was called up with Otis to the main roster, I was like, okay, they finally found something good to do with this guy. Awesome. And then they gave Otis a singles push out of nowhere, totally removed him not only from Heavy Machinery as a tag team, but after he turned his back on Otis, he showed up on one episode of Main Event or whatever, and just we never saw him again. And he lost, and we didn't see Jack. We didn't
Now
see
he's
anything from him.
And if
He's
you remember,
lucky to show up in the 24/7 picture.
yeah, and if you remember the Elimination Chamber, okay, the tag team match there, he was the best thing in that tag team match. He was the best thing in that Elimination Chamber tag team match, and now you can't find him.
Yeah, and that's again, we all have our favorites. I wish nothing but the best for Cesaro, Shinsuke, and Lacey, but at least they did something with them. And Tucker just sort of languished in obscurity, which is a damn shame. So he is my underused superstar of the year by a country mile. Charlie, it's your pick. Who you got
I'm
for
going
underused?
to go completely out of field on this one. No pun intended, apparently. But Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara is simply because focus has been on him, no doubt, but championships haven't. And I feel he should be a tag. He should have been TNT. Hell, throw him in the ring with a world champion. The guy can do anything, but I feel like that hasn't been noted. I want to see some titles on Sammy Guevara.
Very interesting pick. Again, this is
I know, it just came to me because I'm just spewing these tonight.
But you know what? That's what I like about these kinds of categories, because it usually produces some different viewpoints that you don't normally hear. Speaking of, this could be very well be one of them. The breakout star of the year. There's so many different ways I've seen people categorize this category. Scholar Brian, it's your turn. How would you categorize this? Who is your breakout star of the year?
For me, it's a guy who made me believe in a title match feud in 2 promos. Eddie Kingston.
Well, you know,
he legitimately, okay, he came in middle of the year for a TNT title match with Cody Rhodes when Cody Rhodes was doing that invitational. He cut a promo where he said he was going to put Arn Anderson in the ground. And by the end, in the middle of the show, it wasn't even the end of the show. In the middle of the show, you got the graphic that said Eddie Kingston was All Elite. Like, they signed him as soon as he got to the back after the match. Okay, that's it. And then when Lance Archer goes down with COVID, okay, Jon Moxley trusts him enough from his time back in the Indies to be like, I wanted that guy to get the title shot on Dynamite. And then it was so good that they were like, okay, we need a filler feud to go between MJF and losing the title to Omega at Winter's Coming. Okay. And they did it real quick. They were like, we need to get this done. We need to make this worthy in 3 weeks. Okay. And legit, in that 3 weeks, it almost became my feud of the year.
And you know what?
So Eddie and the match itself, holy shit, bro. So it's like, yeah, if you didn't know Eddie Kingston before this, okay, you certainly know him now. Okay. And that's all I need to know.
And you know what? I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Eddie Kingston is my pick for Breakout Star of the Year too, although for a slightly different reason. You're not wrong in anything you're saying at all. But I'm coming at this from someone who sort of kept an ear to the ground for his work on the independent scene like a decade ago, back when I was really, really following the independent scene, just really getting into like the Ring of Honor in its prime and all that. Eddie Kingston was one of those names where it was just, for whatever reason, was just never picked up by a major promotion. He was putting on Dynamite stuff in Chikara a lot and other places, and he was one of those people who was just so good and just never really seemed to find his niche, like, for whatever reason. AEW and the shot he got, he's one of those guys where if you give him the ball, he will fly with it. And thankfully, he was in the right place, the right time. And it's not like, normally when we talk about this category, we usually talk about people who are just bursting onto the scene and are just like really relative newcomers in general. This is the first time I'm picking someone in this role who is more like taking the throne to the place he was always meant to be. This is the role he was always meant to be in, complete with the paychecks, I hope. But then again, Tony Khan's good for that. So it's been great to see. Eddie Kingston's my pick. Charlie, who's yours?
All right. MJF. We knew a year ago, right, that Target was on this guy to be the next heel. We whether you want to admit it or not, you saw him as a future star heel. Fast forward to now, he has gone above and beyond in 2020 as just that. He's going to be a future world champion for years to come. Youngest guy around. That's that certain of himself, who he is, what he's going to be. MJF, and meeting him a year ago.
Not that you're biased or anything.
No, I'm not wearing a scarf autographed by MJF, but I'm wearing a scarf autographed by MJF. A year ago, I would never even think that I'd meet him at a toy drive where I still had to pay for his autograph, but that's sticking to character. So thumbs up. $40 well spent. Amazing. MJF. Being biased as fuck. MJF.
Hey, you're allowed to be biased as fuck. It's all good.
And the greatest, and it's like I love it because of what he posted after the show on Wednesday.
What was that?
Like it's a legit tribute show, and he legitimately tweets, "Fuck that kid."
Oh my god.
True story.
Wow.
It's on Twitter.
Yeah.
Look it up.
I'm like,
Oh my gosh, I need to check that out.
All right, bringing it all full circle.
He won't break
Tarek.
character for nothing.
Tarek, Fool, your pick. Who is your breakout star of the year?
This one is actually going to come to a shocker for you guys. But when it came to breakout star of the year, I looked at it at a different point of view. I looked at a guy who shows up at the beginning of the year just for really just a one-time deal. And he was supposed to leave. And then he started showing back up, doing a couple of matches, not really going anywhere. But then he decided to come at his character in a completely different way. He came in and found 3 superstars that were at a point of complete irrelevance and made them relevant to the point where one of them could potentially be a top contender for the world title in 2021. A man who is currently the United States champion and has the 2 other guys who were at one point in complete irrelevance and made them Raw tag team champions. I'm going with Montavious Porter as breakout star of the year. He came in and made 3 guys who were at a point of irrelevance and now made them one of the biggest attractions on Raw. And now they have almost all the gold. And I can see Bobby Lashley as it's gone from a guy who talks about his sisters to having a stupid relationship story with Rusev and Lana to now being a legit threat and the United States champion. And now that Matt Riddle has signed a multi-year deal, I see Riddle winning the United States title very soon, which will give Lashley the opportunity of going for the world title. Bobby Lashley now is at a point where he now looks like a legit tough guy main event star in WWE, and that's all thanks to MVP. And so with that, MVP is my breakout star of the year.
And that if there was a comeback star of the year award, MVP would get it hands down. Like I think all 4 of us would just we wouldn't even think about it. Just across the board MVP. Just like nothing in the WWE right now for me is going as well, and I don't look forward to anything more than the Hurt Business at this point, other than what's going on SmackDown with Roman Reigns. It's
and
like
on
Roman
that
Reigns
note,
and the Hurt Business. That's it.
and on that note, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to interject because it's my pick for this next category's tag team of the year. That was the perfect segue. I'm gonna go with the Hurt Business, plain and simple. Plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
There's been a lot of good tag teams this year, but only one has had the steady and meteoric rise this year that has had that kind of rise, and it's a Hurt Business. They're awesome. They've been putting in some serious and steady and consistently great stuff this entire year, and it's only gotten better over time. So yeah, Hurt Business. They're my pick. Charlie, your turn. Tag team
I'm
of the
gonna
year.
have to disagree. Street Profits. They've been on fire throughout the whole year. Plain and simple, plain and simple, plain and simple.
Plain and simple. Scholar Tarek, your pick. Who do you got?
I'm actually surprised both of you guys actually chose a WWE tag team for tag team of the year, considering how much WWE hates tag teams. When it came to my tag team of the year, I picked two guys that have been pretty much how I looked at Drew McIntyre and Jon Moxley, but in the tag team division, who basically made the AEW Tag Team Championships one of the most enjoyable things to watch, and that is Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page.
Very interesting pick. And wait, hold on. I'm sorry, I totally lost track of where we're at. Did we go through everybody? Oh no, wait. Brian.
No, we didn't.
Brian.
I am a dumbass. Brian, your pick. I can't math good. I can't math good. This is why I podcast.
You can't math well.
I can't math good. I can't English. I can't
English well.
I English gooder than you. Shut up. Scholar Brian, what's your pick?
I gotta agree. I gotta agree with Scholar Tark here. I can't in good conscience go with the WWE team because they don't care about tag teams, and it's obvious. It's completely obvious. Okay, Street Profits and the Hurt Business have been in the same feud for 3 months now, and before that, it was the New Day and the Hurt Business that were in the same feud for 6 months now. So, and that was pretty much it for that tag team division. And other than the Viking Raider experience and that whole thing with the tentacle monster and all that, with I no, but if you're looking for tag teams in this business, okay, tag teams, it's AEW. That's it, and legitimately the best matches this year. My match of the year has Kenny Omega and Adam Page in it. So that's just the first half of this year, okay, was dominated by Kenny Omega and Hangman Page's tag team matches. And that's all I need to know.
All right. Well, next category, we've got feud of the year. Charlie, we're back at the top of the order. Feud of the year. Who do you got?
AJ Styles, Undertaker.
Clean and right to the point. Next up, we've got Tarek. Feud of the year. Who do you got?
My feud of the year has been less than a month and has made one of the big impacts on me as a wrestling fan. I'm going to go with Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston.
All right. Brian, your pick. Who do you got for feud of the year?
Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston was my second. It was my runner-up because, as I said before, that got me almost the most invested I've been in a title match just because of how real it was. But I've been waiting for it for so long. It took about 5 years to actually make it happen. And when they made it happen, it was so good that I can't not choose Sasha Banks versus Bayley for feud of the year. It's just it was a year-long storyline. They're gonna bring it back around when it's time to come, and just the fact that I thought that it was going to be flipped. I thought that Sasha Banks was going to be the heel and Bayley was going to be the face. But the way that they flipped that around and the way that everything's been working out this entire year, okay, I can't not. It's got to be Sasha Banks versus Bayley.
Fair enough. As for me, I'm taking this one a little bit a different direction. There were lots of really excellent feuds this year, but only one had the sheer surprise factor by how good it was and how it captivated me. it might be a little bit of recency bias here, but I am going with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, which is something I never thought I'd ever hear or
Yeah.
say. But this one was other feuds you can see that are very good and you expect them to be good. This one just was as good as those other ones, with the added factor of it just being sheer surprising to me anyway by how good it was. So I'm going with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso for feud of the year. On the flip side, let's talk for a moment about the worst feuds of the year. Starting with you, Fool. Who do you have for worst feud of the year?
For worst feud of the year, I picked a feud that didn't even have an ending to it. I'm picking a feud that all it was just how many times that one person can put the other person through a table. And the whole thing was building up to a payoff of a tables match that never happened. I'm going with Nia Jax versus Lana.
Okay, Brian, your pick next. Who do you have for worst feud of the year?
I mean, legit. I mean, I don't think there's anything worse than that. I mean, like it's legit. I mean, it's one thing to have a month-long feud that's really bad and then have one bad match, which is what I was thinking. But just this was like 8 weeks of this woman being put through a table, and there's no legit payoff.
Yeah, I guess anything else would be an honorable mention.
There has never been a legit payoff. Never. Okay.
Well,
yeah, I can't not go. It's Nia Jax versus Lana. What the fuck was that?
I'll tell you what. At least you can say what the fuck was that. Because I'll tell you what, my pick for worst feud of the year is Otis and Tucker Knight.
Damn it!
Because it never even happened. It never even happened. It was a perfect setup. Thank you, Charlie. How do you not go somewhere with that? Why?
It was my stupid. God, that is a great wow. That is a legit good one.
Think of that.
I didn't even think about it.
You know why I didn't think of that? Because it
never happened. Charlie, take it home. Make it official.
Odie and Tucky.
Oh, Oder and Tuckus. We missed out on Oder and Tuckus.
Odie and Tucky.
What
the fucky?
Can you see how easy
Oder and Tucky, what the fucky?
It's like, can you see how easy it is for me and Tarek to overlook that?
Obviously.
In point.
Overlook it because it never happened.
All right, let's clean the palate for a second.
But to be fair, yours was a great choice, Fool. I applaud you.
Thank you. I'll take it. Yes.
He just beat me to it.
I applaud you with that choice. But I just think 8 months of build that
for
you're
a
just
tables
thinking,
match that never happened.
For a match that never happened. Wow.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Odie and Tucky, what the fucky? even the catchphrase fits.
I wish it didn't. But anyway, moving on. Let's clear the palate for a second. Scholly Brian, it's your pick for this next category, match of the year. This one should be a little bit lighter. Scholly Brian, it's your go. Who do you got? Match of the year.
AEW Revolution, that tag team match. Adam Page and Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks. That a lot of people online and everything in the polls and all that are gonna go with the Boneyard match and all that. They're gonna go with the conventional and that kind of deal. but I'm like, that was the best wrestled match I'd seen in a couple years.
Hmm.
Okay, that was. I said, look back at our review of that show. I said it's going to be very difficult for something to overtake that for my match of the year. Nothing ever did. Omega and Page versus the Young Bucks, tag team titles, AEW Revolution, tag team match of the year in general. Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what. I was going to be a pleb and go with Taker AJ, but yeah, you're right. I remember this conversation now, so I'm switching my votes. Omega and Page versus the Young Bucks, match of the year. You're not wrong. Scholar Charlie, what do you think? Match of the year. What do you got?
He's not wrong, but the wrestling match that made me realize how fucking real wrestling can get this year, O'Reilly and Balor.
Another solid pick.
They both ended up brutalized after that match. And two of my favorite guys, nonetheless. I agree with Brian. I agree with you. Obviously, you picked the same as Brian. But this match it's still real to me, damn it. Like, it had everything.
All right. And with that, Scholar Tarek, who do you got for match of the year?
My match of the year is quite possibly one of the most complex matches I've seen all year. It had so much in it. Technically, it's a match that also had Hangman Page, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks. It had so much. It started in the ring. It had a wrestling match in a pool. It had people fighting in a bar. It had someone showing up on a fucking horse. I'm going with the Stadium Stampede match at Double or Nothing.
And once again, you're not, with all the crazy things we got in 2020, you're not wrong either.
It had someone be suplexed from one end of a football stadium to the other side of a football stadium. That's just great. That was one of the matches I had so much fun. How ridiculous it was. I loved every second of it.
Nothing's better than Sammy Guevara running away from things.
Sammy Guevara running away from Hangman
Preach,
Page.
Brian. Preach.
Yeah. Golf carts, horses. Let him run at Sammy and let him run away. It's the greatest thing ever.
Many different versions of Matt Hardy in a pool. I mean, come on. Jack Hager and Adam Page just hanging out in a bar, enjoying a drink before they start beating the shit out of each other. There was so much crazy shit happening in that match. And it was, every second of it was just a complete and utter blast.
Oh boy. Well, on that happy note, let's switch to a sad note. We've got our picks for the worst match of the year. And it's my pick, so I'm just going to go with my favorite guy in the worst possible scenario. I'm going to go with Fiend Goldberg. Wrong guy, wrong place, wrong result, wrong everything. No, this match should never happen, at least not like that. Fiend Goldberg, worst match of the year. Charlie, your pick now. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Worst match of the year.
Well, you're going to talk about it because I agree with you.
Stop agreeing with me. Scholar Tarek, worst match of the year.
I don't think we're going across the board here, Chief.
Shut your whore mouth.
The conversation is going to keep going because, yeah, I also had Goldberg versus The Fiend as worst match of the year.
Scholar Brian.
Just Goldberg, anything involving Goldberg, worst everything. But that one is just that big nail that just made me go just rage and anger.
Scholar
Almost
Brian,
as angry as Jeremy Johns reacting to what's her name being cast as April O'Neil.
Goldberg versus The Fiend caused the pandemic. That's all I gotta say.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Wow. This was then you hear what caused all that to happen, and then you're just like, fuck Goldberg, get him off my screen until the end of time.
Oh
Because
yeah,
Goldberg
It was-
actually had the balls to go in and say, no one's going to believe, the kids aren't going to believe that I can't go in and beat the Fiend.
And
That's
oh
the
my,
fucking point.
oh, the biggest, and it's the biggest headache of them all. It was all just to set up Goldberg versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania in a match that just never happened.
Seems
That's
to be
now probably
the,
they're probably
the
going to
theme-
save it for this year's WrestleMania because
your
Vince McMahon just can't
Shut
let this
your
shit Goldberg go.
All right. Well, speaking of, I got not much in the way of transitions here, but I'm going to do it anyway. Pay-per-view of the year. We had a whole bunch of really great shows, but which one was pay-per-view of the year for us? Charlie, back at the top of the order. You got it first. What was your pay-per-view of the year?
I rewatched a lot of the early pay-per-views from this year, and I gotta say, maybe it's just the asshole in me that loves comedic value in wrestling. Maybe it's just acting across the whole board. I don't know though. Money in the Bank, it had everything for me. It had quality wrestling. It had comedic. It had Vince telling two of the top wrestlers on the face of the universe to get out of his office. It had it all. Money in the Bank. Well done.
All right. Tarek, it's your pick. What is yours for pay-per-view of the year?
I'm just this was actually kind of a tough one for me because I just don't remember any real pay-per-views having that huge of an impact for me. So I picked the one that I just remember thoroughly enjoying, and that was Double or Nothing.
All right, Brian, what's your pick for pay-per-view of the year?
Now, honestly, in a year where there were pay-per-views with fans, there were pay-per-views with no fans, it's hard for me to pick a pay-per-view with no fans, even if they were good and all that. My runner-up was the Royal Rumble, just for all the feel-good moments that were in that male Royal Rumble, and there was a lot of good wrestling in between the Royal Rumbles. What took it down was the winner of the women's Royal Rumble, because that made no sense. But in terms of overall enjoyment all around, a show that really had nothing horrible about it. Like the only bad thing you could say about it was the women's match possibly was not quite up to full snub. AEW Revolution.
Okay.
The show with the Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks. It had Moxley winning the title from Chris Jericho when he pulled off the eye patch in that epic babyface hero moment. I believe that was that the show with Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin?
Not entirely sure.
It's just it was just a show that I remembered that really had no downside except from what I remember reading and watching. The women's match in that show was not great, but not bad. It was in the middle, so it was okay. But when the worst thing you can say about your show is that the worst match was okay, that it's AEW Revolution, and the fact that the crowd was hot. The one thing you could say about an AEW show when it has a full crowd, that crowd is hot. Okay, that crowd will not quiet down for nothing. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what. I took once again. It's one of those moments where I took a very different route. I went with WrestleMania 36, and I'm going to say, and here's why. Not because it was WrestleMania, because I know we've sort of defaulted to that just in terms of spectacle. This year, it took on a very different meaning because there was very minimal spectacle. But then again, it was also at the very start of a worldwide pandemic. I think we all remember how things were when things first got started. All the fear, all the uncertainty of what's going on in the world, what's going to happen next. And it very much gave me vibes of right after 9/11 when WWE came back. And it's like, okay, what can we expect? And to me, WrestleMania hitting around that time, even though there were no fans in attendance, so much about it was completely unprecedented. And not only did it give me hope that things were going to be working out for the best in the middle of some really crazy scenarios, that wrestling would still be there, but it would also improve and thrive dramatically. I mean, just think about all the really solid matches all across the card. We've got the ascent of Drew McIntyre. We got the Boneyard match, Undertaker's final match, and it kicked ass. And we've got which was honestly a major pick, a good strong pick for match of the year if it was actually a match, the Firefly Funhouse match, which again, I like the story stuff. That was one of a kind, literally one of a kind.
Absolutely.
So, and plus it was 2 nights, which people have been talking about for a while. I've wanted it. I know a lot of people here have wanted it. They actually pulled it off, and it made for such an enjoyable weekend wrestling viewing experience. It was wonderful. I loved it. I hope they do it again, and this gives me hope not only for the future of wrestling, but just for the future in general. So at the risk of sounding like a cliche pleb, I'm going to go with WrestleMania 36 for my match pay-per-view of the year.
And I just need to for mine. I just remembered a match that was on that show. Charlie will appreciate this because it was his breakout star. Cody Rhodes versus MJF was on Revolution.
It was, wasn't it?
So Cody Rhodes versus MJF. You had Sammy Guevara versus Darby Allin. You had Kenny Omega and Hangman Page versus the Young Bucks. You had Jon Moxley versus Chris Jericho, and I'm pretty sure it was Nyla Rose versus. It was either Riho at that point or Hikaru Shida.
I think it may have been Cheetah.
Yeah, so
so.
I mean, like with that card, how could you go wrong?
You can't.
Well,
That's how.
Well, speaking of cards going wrong, I hate to cut you off, but again, we still have plenty of topics to cover here. We got worst pay-per-view of the year. Charlie, it's your go. Worst pay-per-view of the year. Who you got?
You want to skip?
Yeah. You guys start this off.
All right. Tarek, you're next in line. Who do you got? Worst pay-per-view of the year.
It's actually
I
really
know.
funny.
Okay.
Go ahead, Charlie. You go first.
Brian, I'm going to need a hand on title here. But what was the AEW event where everything went wrong?
All Out.
All Out.
Okay, you're going all out?
Yeah.
Okay. Fool, your pick. Worst pay-per-view of the year.
Like I was gonna say, there was I actually was talking with Brian over this one. That I asked him, I'm like, what was the one pay-per-view this year where people were actually giving it praise, including yourself, Fool, and Brian, that gave it actual pretty decent facial hair rating. And then once I got to it, I just pretty much said that you and everyone else was wrong.
I remember that.
tried and I basically went on my tirade to explain why you and everyone else is wrong by just, and I never really found what pay-per-view that was when I went back to look. I think it may have been Hell in a Cell, but I'm not 100% sure. At least when I said about us on the Raw side, because I remember saying something being angry about Bobby Lashley versus Slapjack for the United States Championship being a part of it. But I did when I looked back on worst pay-per-view of the year, I saw that I got the angriest at Clash of Champions. I just remember I watched it and just made me look. It just made me look at the entire wrestling in general and made me question on whether or not I still wanted to be a wrestling fan.
Ouch.
So if it was something that reached that bad and I was that angry, I'm gonna go with Clash of Champions. But I will say I'm going to find that pay-per-view where everyone actually enjoyed it, and I went on a tirade explaining why everybody is wrong, including you two. I will find it.
All right. While you find it, Scholar Brian, your pick.
I'm gonna go the easy route because we've already talked about it, and it's my worst match of the year. And I hate that every year. Well, I don't hate it because in the grand scheme of things, these shows should not matter at all. But they always end up doing something at the end of it that always pisses me off and causes all kinds of havoc in storylines. These Saudi Arabia pay-per-views, okay, you have no business changing titles with titles changing hands on these Saudi Arabia shows. So yeah, obviously Fiend versus Goldberg is my worst match of the year, so obviously Super Showdown is going to be my worst pay-per-view of the year. These Saudi Arabia shows, they do not work. Okay, you bring legends back to these shows, and the legends shit the bed every single time. So that none of these shows work. Stop doing them. You're not going to because they make you money, but they're so bad every time.
Yeah, I'm just going to cut right to the chase. I'm going to agree with you. Super Showdown was going to be my pick too. For everything you just said and more, it's just very, very disappointing. Like even to me, even AEW's worst show put this show to shame. Super Showdown by a country mile. So on that note, let's talk about something nice again. Let's talk about Women's Wrestler of the Year. Tarek, it's your pick now. Who do you got Women's Wrestler of the Year?
This is another one that I said that I kind of cheated on with this one. I picked two superstars again, and it was the two women who basically took complete advantage over this the COVID era, showing up on both Raw, SmackDown, and I think NXT maybe once or twice. It's going to be Charlotte Flair because it's Charlotte Flair. No, I'm kidding. It's Sasha Banks and Bayley.
Damn it.
They during the COVID era, they were those two were basically the biggest things that come out of took complete advantage of it and became basically the stars of the show, of all the shows that they were on.
All right, Brian, your pick, Women's Wrestler of the Year.
Charlotte Flair because it's Charlotte Flair.
Shut up, fool.
Nay.
I'm not going that far, but basically the same kind of idea that Tarek has. Once again, I'm not going to go both of them route, but this is a person who I did not think could work as a heel. I did throughout the entirety of her career. Nothing she showed me at all showed me that she could work as a heel. And when she did, and she won the title with it was a revelation. Like, this is awesome. How is this happening? How was it? It I took into account her last 2 months. Her last 2 months have not been good. But I'm also not taking outside factors into account. So that's why I'm not going with Sasha Banks. That's why I'm going with Bailey for Women's Superstar of the Year. Because she was able to make me believe in something that I didn't think she could do. Okay, I didn't think that she would ever be able to work a heel role. And she worked a heel role. She worked it into the ground, and once again, as stated by Tarek during that COVID era, okay, I think even above Sasha, she was the best thing. She was the best thing in the COVID era. Yelling at Michael Cole, yelling at the announcers, all that's great stuff. Okay, yeah, it's Bailey for me.
Yeah, and I tell you what, as much as if I had this whole idea of this is about as close as I ever get to picking two people, because I was also going to go with Sasha Banks and Bailey. However, if I had to, if I twist my arm, bullets in my head, I had to pick one person, it would have ding dong hello, it would absolutely be Bailey. I can't believe that actually took off, but Bailey has been firing on all cylinders. I think Bailey would take it in my mind for no other reason than Sasha has been consistently good. Like she's just been like on par, like good, like she always is. But Bailey just like stepped up to that same level of consistency, which was honestly a little bit more surprising. I agree with you. So yeah, I'm going to go with Bailey for Women's Wrestler of the Year. And I believe on that note, I believe it's Charlie's pick. Take us home. Who do you got? Women's Wrestler of the Year.
Sasha Banks.
Okay, so it's like an even
Everyone's
split.
already spoken on her behalf, so I'm just going to say that I pick her.
All right. Nice and clean and to the point. Now we're getting to the absolute best and worst of the year. Our final two traditional Scholly's picks. Unfortunately, kicking off with the Need of Clear Liquid Award for the worst individual moment of the year, whatever that means to you. Let's see, whose pick is it?
Brian's.
I'll go.
It is Brian.
I'll go.
Because I started the women's one with Sasha Banks.
Yeah.
And
So
Bailey.
Brian, it's your pick.
And I've got
Worst-
ready-made points. So it's like
Fire away.
So randomly in the middle of a Wednesday. Okay, I'm sitting in my car and I'm looking at my Twitter account. And I'm just watching. I'm just watching my Twitter account as one wrestler gets fired and another wrestler gets fired. 5 minutes later, another wrestler gets fired. Yes, I'm talking about the day that WWE purged its roster of how many was it at the end of it? Like 25, 30 people?
Like
Actually,
2
I think
dozen.
close to 40.
Not including like the people in the office that they also got rid of at the same time, that you don't know their names and all that. It's like and then it what makes it worse is 3 weeks later, the quarterly numbers come out and they made millions of dollars. And they said that they based it off of monetary concerns. Bullshit. It's basically this year is basically showing, okay, how even though the WWE makes money, the way that they do business, okay, their heads up their ass. Okay, in every in every way you could think of. Okay, you take what I just said. You take what happened during the speaking out movement. Okay, everybody who was talked about that has anything to do with the WWE, they're still in the company. So it's I guess the way that I can put my need of clear liquid moment of the year, it's basically an overview of the entire year and just as a whole the way the WWE does business.
Fair enough. For this one, when it comes to this award every year, I try to focus on some sort of active decision that someone made that was just the worst of the year. And as bad as that was, there's only one thing that I can think of that was worse that comes to mind. In the midst of all these tragedies and all these different things, I am going to go with the tragedy of Hana Kimura. And again, because I know we've had a whole lot of losses. We've had legends who have passed away due to old age. Most recently, I know we've had Brody Lee, which was due to an illness, a sudden illness. We had also had Shad Gaspard, who, again, at least it's still a tragedy, but at least he went out directing people to save his child. He went out like a hero. With Hana Kimura, that was just driving her to suicide. That was just, there's no excuse for that. Especially considering, if I can be a little bit selfish and narrow-minded for a moment as a fan.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, for this, there was a point in time when, if you were looking at the scene of Joshi wrestling, there was plenty of names to pick from of people who could potentially go to WWE or come to the States in some capacity. Kana, when she was signed, she was the first of many, arguably, when she came to WWE and became Asuka. You could have gotten Kairi Hojo when she got signed and became Kairi Sane. Io Shirai, they just kept getting scooped up one by one. Hikaru Shida, you got picked up by AEW. Riho, I don't think most of us even knew who she was, but Kenny Omega sure did. Boom, there you go. And that short list over time just seemed to be getting smaller and smaller and smaller, of big names in Joshi wrestling who could conceivably become big stars in the States. And for me, the one person who was really left above all else in Japan at the time was Hana Kimura. And just with the one stupid decision, just boom, any hope of that happening, of her becoming a big star in the States, just bang, done. And just because of the way it happened, to me, was far worse than any poor booking decision like that. So I cannot help but go with Hana Kimura in that sense.
Internet bullies, man.
I actually forgot about that.
I had to do a top down on a really crappy year, and for me, I had to get really specific on this one. And for me, Hana Kimura was just the one I couldn't help but go with.
Yeah.
On that cheery note, Charlie, who do you got for Need of Clear Liquid?
Well, I will gladly turn this into a comedic performance. It's a tie between whoever booked Goldberg and The Fiend and whoever booked Braun the Fuck Strowman to win the title at WrestleMania.
Okay. You're certainly not wrong. It's more, hey, it was wild circumstances lead to wild results. Then again, Tarek, you're up with Need of Clear Liquid. Which moment had you need of it?
I'm going to take it a little one step further with Brian's because he's absolutely right. When it came to the backstage politics of WWE, they just show that they are just incredibly bad at like in the business long run. But then I'll take the one step further and add more specifics to Vince McMahon himself, just showing how much of a crap on businessman that he really is. Adding in from what he did with the firings in April to releasing Selena Vega on the way that they did, to Vince McMahon pretty much screwing over his business partners with the flop of the XFL. It just, all in all, in the end, it just made me build up the entire year of me just wanting Vince McMahon himself to just go away. I always look back at what he did in the past, but just now looking at what he's doing in today's standards, it just makes me not want. It makes like I will always support the wrestlers that are in WWE, but it never makes me want to support Vince McMahon himself ever again, just showing how much of a asshole that he is and just how much he'll just screw you over just to make sure he gets a quick buck, even though like what Brian said in April, for the April firings, they didn't need to fire him. They were still making perfectly good money. They just did the cuts and furloughs just to get more. And it's worse because it was during a pandemic where people having jobs is like they need to have jobs, not that they should have jobs. And it's just like, nope, sorry, good luck. It just left such a sour taste in my mouth. It just really, to the point where even now thinking about it is kind of making my blood boil. Just thinking about it, that having to bring it back up. So yeah, it's not booking wise. It really wasn't anything. It was just more backstage politics bullshit showing why WWE is such, I guess best way to put it is like the shitty company is really the shit company to go to compared to the young company of AEW.
And on that note, that I couldn't ask for a more perfect segue for our final full award category of the night, the You're Welcome Award, of conversely the best moment of the year. And for this one, I had to make sure, I need to look back to make sure that it wasn't just recency bias that I'm picking this one. But Charlie, I believe you put it in one of our group chats very succinctly, and I'm going to go with the Brody Lee tribute show.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah,
That was Brian. Yeah,
was it Brian? That's okay.
it was
I
a great
apologize
tribute
then.
show. No, but that was Brian.
Here's the thing, though. Conversely, think back to almost all of the conversations we've had about WWE as a company, and they are almost predominantly negative when we're talking about a management portion here. Meanwhile, you've got AEW, and we had the passing of Brody Lee, and it was a net loss. Like when we're talking about losses, yeah, we have some legends who were with someone like Pat Patterson or Kamala. They were old, they were sick, they had full lives. Sad, but there's a way to contextualize that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with someone like Shad Gaspard, again, went out directing people to save his son. He went out like a hero. Tragic, a loss, yes, but there's a positive spin to that. Even Hana Kimura, her life can be as sad as it was to see all that lost potential and all that lost talent. It can still be used as a teaching moment. With Brody Lee, it was just he just got sick and suddenly gone. It was nothing but a net loss, and it was something that I think from fans to everyone in there, it was a lot to take in. It was just straight up hard and difficult to deal with. The AEW tribute show to Brody Lee was about as touching, tasteful, and moving as you get. And as good as the show was, the real cherry on top to me was just the sheer sincerity of how it all felt. And it all left me with a positive affirmation of not only what AEW can be to its fans and its wrestlers that can take care of them, but also it gave me hope in the entire wrestling business as a whole. That it need not be just like this consuming force where it just tears down lives and ruins lives and brings about a whole bunch of cynical old men if they even get old. Now I see a future for not just, at the risk of sounding over the top and over dramatic, this was an indication that there is an optimistic hope for the wrestling on an industry standpoint. And it was just the kind of strangely hopeful note that I'm glad that's 2020 ended on, for at least from a wrestling world perspective. So yeah, Brody Lee tribute show. I think we're all going to mostly agree on this. Charlie, take us home. Agree? How?
I agree. Honorable mention, obviously, only because it's me. Edge returning at Rumble.
Very good. Also, another big one. You're not wrong.
But yeah, it was so tasteful. Cody, you could tell his every emotion, as always with Cody Rhodes, but just so respectfully done. Brody's son, it just had everything. I'll let Brian and Tarek speak on behalf of it as well.
All right. On that note, Tarek, what do you have to say on it?
I am also going to go with the Brody Lee tribute show. It was actually kind of funny because for the longest time, my You're Welcome moment, basically throughout the entire year, the way I was looking at it was, what was the one thing that I throughout 2020 that I kept going back to and watching it constantly, and it was the Firefly Funhouse match. So I guess just to go with Charlie, I make that one an honorable mention because it got dethroned by the Brody Lee tribute show. It was the one, like, I don't remember the last time I actually cried so much when it comes to anything wrestling related. Because I guess it also hits on such a level, on an emotional level. Because even though I really didn't follow Brody Lee through the independence circuits, we pretty much watched him. We were there with him becoming a star. First showing up in NXT with the Wyatt family, and then moving to the main roster, and putting in memorable matches between him and like the Shield or the New Day or the Usos as the Bludgeon Brothers. And then we see him move to AEW to become the Exalted One in Brody Lee, and there was so much potential in him, which I actually thought it was just a matter of time before he actually won the AEW championship. And then, of course, he won the TNT championship. And granted, it was more of a transitional championship reign, but it's still the fact that he actually won a title before his unfortunate situation. But yeah, I think just that the ending video package actually, like, first I was, now I'm just going all over the place with that show, with the show. Uh, the one part where I was like on the verge of crying was Eric Rowan, or Redbeard, whatever he's calling himself now,
I think it's
showing
Eric Redbeard, but yeah, absolutely.
showing up and seeing after that particular match, John Silver just collapsing, crying, and Rowan coming out with the poster of the things that he always said, uh, and the final video package where with Brody Lee Jr. retiring his boots to the end video package, it with including pictures of him and Bray while he and Rome as the Bludgeon Brothers, just seeing like WWE stars, current the WWE stars in pictures of a AEW show. It made me so happy to see, like, due to unfortunate circumstances, we see the entire wrestling world unite. WWE and AEW come together to look at this one man's career. Hell, not even just his life, and just how much of an impact he's made on their lives. And in a way, it gives me hope for the future that maybe one day when this is, like I said, I've said this in the past, and I will say it's more. It may be a pipe dream, but it was just seeing how united everyone became because of this man's passing. It gives me a hope that maybe one day in the future, these stupid barriers of like, oh, it's another company, at least in WWE specifically, that whole WWE or nothing, the rest of the wrestling world doesn't matter unless it's in WWE. That stupid wall breaks down, and the wrestling world unites and becomes one thing to make each other better instead of just make them better.
And with that, Brian, take us home.
Yeah, as the year was going on, and when we were first told that, hey, it's time for the Scollies, my plan was to say that my best moment of the year was finally the good use of cinematic matches in wrestling, with the Boneyard match, the Firefly Funhouse, the Stadium Stampede, all that, and I would have made a talk about all that and all, but yeah, based off of what I saw on Wednesday, that might be no hyperbole, and that might be the best show I've seen wrestling wise that I've ever watched, ever. That was the perfect. That was the only way that they could do that, and you would never get that anywhere else. Okay, the only thing I can equate it to, okay, would be when Eddie Guerrero passed, but that was a tribute throughout the show, and I believe that was a Triple H and Chris Benoit main event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and everything in between that was regular wrestling show. This was legitimately all about the 2 hours, all of it, about Brody Lee and everything that he had been working for when he was in AEW. The Dark Order were in all the matches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Dark Order got all the wins. Okay, that's it. Okay, it was just perfect. everything you could have wanted in that tribute show, other than things that contractually could not happen, were involved in that tribute show. Okay, that was perfect. Okay, I've never seen anything better in the time that I've been watching wrestling. And that's no bullshit. I have never been so proud to be a wrestling fan than watching this show and seeing everybody come together. Okay, you had all the AEW people, you had the WWE people in the photos allowing their visuals to be had in a different company. Okay, everything that you did, as Moxley said in his tribute, when the chips are down, pro wrestling is a community and family takes care of each other. Okay, and this is the first time since Owen Hart and Eddie Guerrero that I've actually seen it in action for an entire show. And it sucks that it actually had, and it sucks that the only time we can actually see this is when something like this happens. But when it does happen and they actually perform a tribute show correctly, it's the best thing you'll ever see in the business.
Absolutely. I'm not going to argue with you at all. But on that happy note, we are finally finished with the 2020 Scholly Awards. But before we go totally, Fool, I believe you have been doing the math and calculating the points for Scholar of the Year. So I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of trash talk before we all sign off for this evening. So without further ado, Tarek, let's do the reveal. Who is the 2020 Scholar of the Year?
Indeed, the last award that we have to give, the 2020 Scholar of the Year. I've added up all the pay-per-views. So, granted, I will say I didn't get all of Charlie's pay-per-view predictions. So I just added up what I had, and Charlie had a score of 102 points of Scholar predictions. In third place, we have Scholar Jeff with 135 points.
Figures.
In second place, it is Scholar Brian with 145 points. So with that said, your winner with 147 points is your three-time Scholars of Wrestling Party champion, and is now your three-time Scholar of the Year, Scholar Tarek, the undisputed Scholar Tarek, your 2020 Scholar of the Year.
And there's no trash talk over here. The king stays king. It's all good. But I just gotta say, okay, top of the mountain stays top of the mountain. Newbies ain't getting nowhere. Hold that championship all you want. You got 31 days, boys.
Oh,
True.
And you know what? That's, in my mind, that's what makes this all easier to swallow. But before we sign off, congratulations to Tarek for the most points this year, for winning Scholar of the Year. But that's what makes this time of the year so exciting. Not only do we get to celebrate the champions, but the seeds are planted, the grounding is ripe for a brand new champion to be crowned, or several, because Royal Rumble is right around the corner, and
retain.
Anything can happen. Retentions, new champions,
or retentions.
anything can happen.
New scholar in the bank, new scholar of the
So many
scholar of the year.
possibilities. So many
many
possibilities.
Tarek, the way he's hugging that title, I think he's kind of
Or
scared.
retentions.
Does he look scared to you, Scholar
All right.
Tarek?
All right.
You-
All that was just
It's like he's on the verge of wetting his pants.
Or retentions.
well, I'll
Cherish
tell
it,
you
man.
what.
Cherish it.
I'll
I
tell you
will.
what.
All three of us
Now-
are going after that belt.
Or retentions.
Or attentions. But you know what? We can trash talk all we want. Now is the point in the show where we turn it over to you, our viewing wrestling discussing audience, wherever you are, all across the internet. We want to hear from you. What was your best and worst of the year? Drop us a line all across the internet, Facebook posts, YouTube comments, Twitter comments,
Live journal entries.
live journal entries, MySpace posts.
How about the
No.
Tumblr? How about the Tumblr?
I'm out.
World is round.
World is wow.
Holy crap.
I can't beat that one. Anyway, just follow us on Twitter. It's the best way to get to us. Starting with
Zanga.
at Scholars OW for all the latest episode uploads every single week, and our personal Twitter accounts. Fool, where can they reach you?
No one's gonna take
I
Cool.
think we lost him.
Did we lose Tarek? Oh no. Anyway, Brian, where can they reach you? Twitter accounts.
You could reach me trying to find Scholar Tarek at Atomic Beanpole.
Well, if we don't get to him, you can also find him on Twitter at the Avataric. Charlie, where can they reach you?
You can find me retaining my championship at Charlie.
And you can find me at trying to figure out all this tech stuff at I'm Robbie Rage. Thank you for joining us once again for another edition of the Scholly Awards and the Scholars of Wrestling. We're going to be back for another action-packed year of predictions and joy, because you know who we are. We are the Scholars of Wrestling, and you have just been schooled. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
See you all for another action-packed 2021.